Yeah.
Hi.
Okay, top of page 8. Just the man. Here we go. Starting with the bases. 1, 2, 3, 1. Let's take just the tenors on. Last measure, top staff, page 9, just the tenors. Going on. Just the tenors, top staff, last measure. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong hole. You were right, same spot. 1, 2, 3, 1. All right, let's do the same with the basses. Same speed. 3, 1. They praise thee. 1, 2, they praise thee. 2, 3. They praise thy name. Let's put it together, everybody. Everybody, all the men, women, children, everybody. Top page 8. As my father would have said, if you get lost, just move your lips.
And make sure that's all.
Right. Okay, top of page 8. 1, 2. Praise thy name, praise thy name, praise thy name,
Is it really bad in the
This is great because there's no sculpture stuff here, only photos.
Really? What are you looking at, your breast?
Lady,
Where did you get those?
raised.
Are in there. I got on the chair.
There they were. It was at the
He's dead. Is that Judy? Yeah. Years old. That's funny. Yeah, we had hair. Now we don't have any hair. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
It started to leak. Well, after he died, it started.
Maybe she went on there.
That was, to me, what really got me excited about Russ, because he wanted to start all these micro television.
Yeah.
What were they called? Little micro stations, similar to ITFS. And it was microwave, like the micro television, right? And we went to the PAC organization, to the foundation, to get the money to fund it. And they wouldn't fund it. It's a matter now. Because he thought he did have a great idea.
Right. Mary's talking to your husband.
Yeah, Mary said she was going to try and come.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I haven't all seen it. I think I'll sit here.
I sat at Santa Maria University.
We'll see the TV.
Sit up here. Yeah.
picture of you.
Hi.
Yes, God is his past. Really? She was always used to pick on me.
I'm sure. I'm just sure.
Like she's the only one.
You want to watch? I want to watch. I want to Hamilton watch.
I won first place with Danny at the theater, at the main theater.
That's Brian. But I think that some people will still get here a little after 1 because they're finding a way to go. Sure. Wait. Yeah. Project, so because the sign. Where is your car? I'm Joan. On the phone with Judy and right.
Oh, yeah.
Nice setup. Yeah.
Oh, it's on the.
Yes, did you get my back?
Oh, good. But I have some other notes.
I guess. They got like Thank you, Joe. Oh, you're so welcome.
Kurt retired or I doubt that.
I don't think I can make that. I'll never forget. Remember when we had that terrible storm? Yeah. And so was Gloria. But remember when we had that terrible...
Like a sable coat, the black shines beautiful burgundy brown, but he's black and white. And he's not even long but he's I can
Yes. And and I think that's a wonderful book because it helps you understand why,
In that area?
They've been there a while because Chris and Mary have been there a year and they were there for
Why don't you find yourself a spot? I didn't realize until I was listening to my dad's oral history tapes that when I came up a few years ago, you were involved in the Keep Room Phone for that music studio that they started down on Madison Street. It didn't last too long. Me. You know that? I'm so glad to see you. I don't know how long you say. Hi, Joe. I'm glad that we'll be hearing you.
And I brought Marianne and Jim. Okay. Marianne and Jim Bartell. This is Ivy Blake and this is David. Hi. And this is over there.
Hi. Good to see you.
And I didn't really think still that's Griselda. What? Remember Griselda?
Really? And you know who that dog is?
This is from 1936 at Northwestern University.
That's Russ. Oh yeah, he was at Omaha U.
the Municipal University of Illinois.
No, Mimi is not here. I would say, yeah, 80.
They knew Russell.
Celebrating their father today. And I'm delighted and honored to do that. Thanks, Judy. Mimi wishes that she could be here. She wasn't able to make the long trip. She and Russ were married nearly 20 years. She loved him very much. She took care of him for a long time through his many battles with his health problems. They shared many wonderful experiences. Carol and I and Joe saw them out in Hemet, California 10 years or so ago and spent a wonderful day with Russ and Mimi. She's happy that you're able to join us today. I first met Mr. Widoe in the Channel 11 studio in 1970 when he handed me a pointer and stood me in front of a Wisconsin map and aimed me at a teleprompter. It was the beginning of 5 or 6 years together at Newest in the Channel 11 offices and here at Green Bay. The time was brief, but he had a profound impact on me, in which I've learned to appreciate even more as the years and the decades have passed. The way he delighted in music, art, politics, people most of all, and life in general inspired me. His favorite expressions are still spinning around in my head. And thank God he repeated them often enough for me to remember them now. They're still giving me comfort and making me laugh. As when I sat down the other day to think about this gathering and what I could add to celebrate him, I could hear him say, "We do the best we tries." I'll say a little bit more about my experience with this remarkable man later, and I know that some of you will want to also. For now, welcome, friends of Russ Widoe. Mr. Widoe's daughter, Judy.
Russ left everyone in this room some legacy or another. I think the two things I remember most about him that meant the most to me about him were two gifts that he gave me. One was a love of music that persists to this day. He was a fine choral director, and I always enjoyed spending time at the rehearsals watching him, and I think I picked some of it up by osmosis, and in fact came to direct the choir at our church and have enjoyed that very much. The other thing that he gave me, I don't know if he even realized it, was a very strong faith in God. We went to church at Christ Episcopal Church in Green Bay. He was the choir director there. I think we probably picked it because they needed a choir director, and that worked. We joined shortly after we moved to Green Bay in 1947. But he felt very strongly that that faith was going to be an anchor that would get me through some really rough times in life, and he was right. And I'd like to share two passages of Scripture with you this morning before the choir sings this afternoon. The first is Psalm 130. This is, we thought about singing this, Marcella. This is Out of the Depths. I think one of the, was it Bob Szymalski that wrote a piece with that? Father Szymalski.
He wrote the De Profundis.
And you guys did that at some point, I assume? Well, I believe it was taken from Psalm 130. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. O Lord, hear my voice. Let your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy. If you, O Lord, kept a record of sins, O Lord, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, therefore you are feared. I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, and in his word I put my hope. My soul waits for the Lord more than watchmen wait for the morning. More than watchmen wait for the morning. O Israel, put your hope in the Lord, for with the Lord is unfailing love, and with him is full redemption. He himself will redeem Israel from all their sins. And from John chapter 14. Jesus was comforting his disciples about the fact that he wasn't going to be with them much longer. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you. And if you go, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas said to him, Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I just thank all these wonderful people for coming to share their gift of music. Bob, did your wife ask you to say a few words? Can you come to one of the microphones?
I think the reason that it's on,
Yeah.
I think the reason they've asked me to do this is because I may be just about the oldest member of the chorus that sang under Russ Widoe. I say just about, I don't know, George Verheyen might be older than I am. But I didn't have an active participation in music until 1950. In the early 1950, Russ and several other people got together and decided to produce an operetta, Victor Herbert's Naughty Marietta. And I was still in school at the time, I was a senior at St. Norbert's, and I didn't do anything as far as that one was concerned, but in the fall of the year, in order to try and keep these singers together, Russ decided to start a community chorus. So he did that by organizing a Christmas concert, starting maybe in September, October, go to rehearsals, and then put on a concert at Christmas, which was a variety of songs, some familiar, some not too familiar. And then the following spring, putting on another Victor Herbert operetta, The Red Mill. Again, trying to retain all these voices. Well, that went on for a number of years, at least through 1956. And the operettas were always popular. They were run generally 4 nights in a row, and they'd be standing room only until the last couple of years, because in 1953, Green Bay got its first television station. And the operetta performances, the various choral concert performances, even community theater, all these homegrown groups lost audience because people were busy with the new entertainment, TV, that was it. And it took years, something like 15 years, before 1 or 2 of the groups managed to come back and attract their audiences again. But all the while we were doing this, we had fun, audiences or not, because of all the relationships you had with people as things were going on. Rehearsals were work, but they were also fun and funny. Different incidents happened that you remember yet today, and you laugh about them because they were funny at the time. They were still funny. The choirs and choruses that Russ had for example, spring concerts or an additional program here or there, just about all the same people, and we went from anywhere from show tunes to some very classical music. Russ was the one that introduced us all to this, going everywhere from the even some modern musicals right into the various requiems by Cherubini, Mozart, the Beethoven masses, things like this. He was a teacher. He taught us to sing together. He taught us how to sing together, sing the right way, and I think it's one of the greatest learnings in my life because I had never even thought remotely about singing back in 1950. But he was the spark that started for me and for many others. And I remember one time I said to him, maybe after a month and a half of rehearsals for that first Christmas concert, I said, Russ, I have a little problem here. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. And I played a little 3 or 4 note thing on the piano. And I said, now listen to me sing that. And I did. He said, well, it sounds fine. It's very good. And I said, okay, because the tenor that sits next to me on the right sings flat, and the guy next to me on the left sings sharp. So as long as I'm in between, I know I got it. He left me there. He must have decided, well, that's the cure. Just let him sit there, and he'll sing okay. But yeah, for that, I am truly grateful that I had interest enough to come out for the chorus that first time, because I learned something, and I just directed right back to Russ and the way he taught. It was a method in which you wanted to do what he said. He knew how to inspire you to do it. So I don't want to hold us up any longer. We always have to remember that Russ always put this in our minds. He'd say, remember, no matter what happens out there, the show must go on. But there was a Broadway producer who once said that too. He said, the show must go on, but not too far past 11:15.
Widoe was a leader in bringing educational television to Wisconsin, and Judy received a letter the other day from the Educational Communications Board I'd like to read to you. Dear Judy, please accept my sympathies for the death of your father, Russ Widoe. Mr. Widoe was a passionate person in making use of television to help young people learn. His vision created a practice of delivering broadcast instructional resources to schools in northern Wisconsin and eventually throughout the state. Thousands of teachers and students benefited from the many television lessons he hosted, produced, or acquired for airing first on commercial TV and eventually public television. His time served on the Wisconsin Educational Communications Board demonstrated a heartfelt interest in using technologies in positive ways to expand the learning opportunities for people of all ages. Russ was a mentor for many of us as we grew to know the importance of his vision and as we still go about our daily task of ensuring quality instructional broadcast on public TV. It was my privilege to have known your father. He was a great example of one who cared deeply and expressed his convictions to ensure his ideas were implemented and benefited everyone. Please convey my sympathies to you and your family. Cordially, Ron Unlocked, Education and Communications Board. Now I'd like to introduce Lyle Martins. Lyle was the Deputy State Superintendent of Schools for the Department of Public Instruction. He was a superintendent of Green Bay Schools, and as the superintendent of Seymour Schools, he helped Russ get Newest started and helped him in bringing the first Wisconsin Public TV network station, Channel 38, to Green Bay. Wow.
Thank you, Brian. I want to give thanks to the family members. I was so honored when Joe called me to speak here today. I never expected something like that. In fact, as I didn't know that Russ had passed away, I was up in Saskatchewan hunting. That's the things you try to do during retirement. And so when I returned and received Joe's call, I called my son and said the absolute truth. I said, I'm going to be at a celebration of Russ Widoe. And he said, Russ Widoe? And I said, yes, Colonel Caboose. He so much enjoyed Colonel Caboose when he was growing up and watching his particular program. And so I assure you that there was memories with many children that he left besides all the other legacies that one can talk about. I'm sure that as many of us speak today, briefly, you're going to hear many of the similar stories and remarks that not only were in printed material that's in your program, but in the books around on the tables. But I feel honored because I did have some beginnings with Russ Widoe. As a young superintendent just starting out, he became a mentor to me, and we all wanted to leave some kind of legacy, and he helped me do that. When Operation Area Arts, which many of you in this room probably don't remember, but it was one of the first federal grants that was written in this area by area schools and was given to CISA. Operation Area Arts was for the performing arts and was for orchestra and for artists in residence and all the various aspects of the artist world. And we still struggle to this day around finding money for the arts. It doesn't come easy. But once we had that grant, we were able to start some things. Russ Widoe came to me one day and he said, he said, I'm so interested in children and educational television. Is there a way that we could get something started? And some of the things that aren't printed in the papers here and that you should know about is that Russ and I went to the Packer organization because he had this vision, a man way ahead of himself, which one would recognize today. He had this vision of a microwave stations around the state of Wisconsin emanating out of Green Bay to do this sight-of-line television so he could bring programming to the rural schools and to children around this part of the state. So we went to the Packer Foundation, and that was the first rainfall we had, as Russ said. We didn't get any support from the Packer Foundation. His vision was too far in the future, and they couldn't see microvision as something that would help education and children out. But we kept pursuing that, and that was the beginning of newest, Northeastern Wisconsin in-school television. And what we did was rented 1 hour at a time, as I recall, and started with on Channel 11. And what isn't in the record is we also rented an hour at a time from former Congressman Okonski's tower up in Rhinelander, and Russ's programs were also emanating from that tower up in Rhinelander, which is still there to this day. But I remember visiting many schools trying to secure 25 cents or 20 cents, as I recall, per student to have these particular programs. The second rainfall that happened is after we had newest established, and after we had these programs going out to children, which he'd watch those programs and he'd just bubble, watching the children learn music. He also had mathematics started. We also taught an hour of mathematics to the rural schools over the television, which he isn't recognized for, as I read the literature. And so he should be given credit for the mathematics world also. But his vision of bringing all these schools together sort of had some low points in it, which we called rainfalls. And you know, in order to see a rainbow, you have to have some rain. And we always used to talk about that a little bit. And then Green Bay dropped out of newest, and of course having about 18,000 students at the time at 20 cents a student, that put a huge dent in the budget. And we struggled around getting more and more schools involved so that we could have a budget that would move educational television forward in newest. But we did that, and I stuck with Russ. And then we went to the ECB board, and I remember the battles down in that little heated room down in the ECB with trying to get ITFS started, Instructional Television Fixed Service, which came about after Russ left here, but must be given 100% credit for establishing and giving us the mentoring to keep fighting for ITFS, which is still operating today out of newest, one of those technologies of line sight television that has gone to all the schools around the state of Wisconsin, and the entire state of Wisconsin is now serviced by that technology, as well as newer technology has come about. So let me tell you that my connection with Russ and area arts, something else that, and I could always stand to be corrected, but part of area arts was starting orchestra. The only strings program in the area was in the Green Bay school system. And he thought that all young people ought to have an exposure to the strings program. So we started through area arts string programs in a host of schools around northeastern Wisconsin in the 4th and 5th grades. And he was instrumental, no pun intended, in that. And we started the strings program, and some rain fell in that. It finally, under the weight of people buying instruments and the kind of instruction that was needed and the lack of funding and interest, that program didn't continue, much to his dismay and to mine, as we saw the orchestra program again diminished in some of the surrounding schools. I bring that up because he not only mentored people and gave people a vision to try some of these things, but he kept insisting that we move forward and continue to try to bring these programs to fruition for kids. And his passion was very, very deep around children, and that's the thing that instilled in me to continue with newest after he left, to continue fighting, and I was 11 or 12 years on the Educational Communication Board. We won most of the battles. The rainbow continued to grow because we secured funding across the state of Wisconsin. And while Channel 38 was started, so were other channels across the state of Wisconsin and other ITFS networks. And now there are many networks in the state of Wisconsin pulling us together. Russ Widoe should be recognized for that, because he was the one who insisted we do that. He was before his time, but he was right on task. He knew what needed to be done, and it's now a reality. He was a mentor to me, as I indicated, but he was also a mentor to Eileen Littig. Eileen Littig has continued that legacy of his program development, and as I looked, there were a whole number of programs that I didn't even realize that he had developed and participated in and made real for the public in this part of the state of Wisconsin. And so she continued that, winning many awards for the programs that he surely helped her develop. I lost contact with Russ Widoe when he left Wisconsin. My only contacts were through Eileen, and she gave me reports that he was still very much concerned and still argued about what we were doing right and what we were doing wrong over here. And so I'm sure that he continued to keep her on task as we developed those programs. As I end, I just want to tell you that while we had some rainfall, while Russ had some downs as he tried to accomplish the things that he had set a vision for, the rainbow is complete. There was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. The programs that he developed continue to exist, and while we continue to fight for funding for the arts programs, they're well-founded. His legacy is complete in that sense. And while he left numerous legacies, the main legacy that I'll remember Russ Widoe for is that legacy of his passion for the learning, his passion for children's programs, and what they would do for the young people in connecting education and fun. And that's what Russ Widoe was really known for in my book. So again, my sympathy to the family and the passing of Russ. My memories of him will always remain. I just think the most of him, and I'm most honored because I think a lot of people here had many more contacts with Russ Widoe, know many more things about Russ than I do, except my early beginnings with him. So I thank you, and I'm honored for having the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
I bring it up a little bit. It's not, yeah, it's not a very good one.
Wait a little bit.
I'm Eileen Liddig, and I'd like to thank Lyle Martins because Lyle Martins all these years. Russ Widoe was a man for all seasons. Mr. Widoe was the first director of NUIS, Northeastern Wisconsin In-School Telecommunication, a nonprofit agency that he founded in 1967, which serves kids and teachers in instructional television and new technology needs. NUIS was a prototype for all the other regional centers across the state that now serve students and teachers in instructional media, except NUIS is the only one that does television production in partnership with Wisconsin Public Television. Russ loved doing television production for kids, and he was great at it. I'm the second director of NUIS, a job which I love, but it can also be a very daunting job, which Mr. Widoe understood. In the year 2000, NUIS will have been in operation for 33 years. Each year in July, we start with zero-based funding, which means we have to get contracts from the schools, plus securing funding for television production that we are doing. I learned from Russ so many things, and I would like to tell you that he was the most important mentor in my life. But most of all, he gave me a love for the business and remembering who we are producing the television programs for, the kids in the classroom. He would always say, kids can't vote for the programming they need, so see them in your mind as you do your work. He would call me every 2 months after he retired, and I mean every 2 months, and he would ask me how I was doing. We would always have the same opening conversation. I would say, fine, but no thanks to you, because I was now responsible for the operation of NUIS. And then we would both laugh. He would always end the phone conversation with this: "You're doing a great job, kid." We still have a lot of the furniture in the office that he bought, the cupboards that he built. In fact, the people now want to buy the chairs because they're the 60s chairs, but we're going to put them in a museum. We have the coffee maker. It has been going for 33 years. It has been for 33 years, and the week that he died, it's a very strange thing. The coffee maker started leaking a little bit. And it was just, but it's been going for 33 years. We still have many of the traditions that he set up, like giving Christmas cookies to the mailroom, to receiving, to Wisconsin Public Television. And many have told us throughout the years that we are the only agency at the university that thinks of them at Christmas. We were all family at NUIS, and we watched out for one another. If someone was down, we helped them get up. When you were around Mr. Widoe, you felt that you could do almost anything. When people asked him why I was always doing so many projects, he would always say, "You don't rein in a racehorse." That was that, and we always had fun in whatever projects we were involved in.
We laughed a lot. We believed in one another. We were hopeful. And we produced excellent television programs. And we remembered the kids in school. He was the only man, besides my husband, that I could talk about 6 different topics in one sentence, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. I loved his silly sayings, and when I remember them, I have to smile. When we didn't raise all the money we needed for television production, and we still had a long way to go, he would always say, "Eileen, it is better than a kick in the butt with a frozen boot." And I was thinking of that yesterday when I had some trouble raising money. I still hold on to that saying today, and when we run into trouble raising money. But I always know that we will get the money for the productions. Russ taught me to believe in myself and know that we at Newest can accomplish wonderful things. We have. I'm proud to be the second director of Newest. I had a marvelous teacher. He was role modeling all the time. I've always looked forward to every day at Newest. Each day is so different, and I must say, really fun. When Russ was there, we celebrated every accomplishment with food, laughing, and being there with one another. We would have greasy donuts from Marchand's, which he would bring on his way from Door County, oxtail soup, which he loved to make, picnics outside the office, and sweets, which he dearly loved but had to watch his intake in later years. And occasionally we would have a glass of wine to celebrate the grants and awards. We had plastic glasses, wine glasses, that we kept in a box, and when the occasion came, we toasted one another. You had to screw the wine glasses together, and we had the wine. And we were laughing last night because one time Brian brought the wine, and he stored it outside in the snow, and when it was time to celebrate, someone had stolen the wine. So we didn't get to get it. We were a team. Carol Wolf, Gene Stauber, Joe Mellon, Brian Schmidlin, Gail Behrens, and myself. Then we had the excellent consultants that we worked with, Karen Pravetti and Maggie Olson. I remember my family being invited to the farm in Door County after Martha died because he didn't want to go up there alone. Russ would cook, and we would talk, walk, and laugh a lot. I particularly remember one time when Russ was at the piano and my husband David and he were belting out pieces from Gilbert and Sullivan operettas. He was kind, he was compassionate, he was empathetic, he was fun, he was a good listener, he was hopeful, he was a good friend, he was an excellent mentor. He remembered the kids in the classroom and in his television audience. And most of all, I loved him for who he was. He was a man for all seasons.
Thanks, Eileen. I'd like to talk a little bit more about Russ, the mentor and teacher. Now, you can hear me? Is that better? Russ, Mr. Widoe, excuse me, was the first person in my life, other than my parents, to give me his complete confidence. He seemed to think I could do just about anything, and for a while there, he had me actually believing in myself. When he called me a gentleman and a scholar, I thought, now he's pushing it a little too far. Maybe he's just frustrated that I'm not working as fast as he is. But he did really mean it. And eventually I came around to thinking, oh, maybe he's right. I could do that after all. He had, by that time, already turned me into a TV teacher, a producer, a script writer, a grant writer, and a few other job titles I'd never even heard of just 2 years before that. The whole adventure started one day in the summer of 1970. It was a year after I'd arrived in Green Bay, fresh out of college, not knowing much of anything. The phone rang. It was Russ. It was a Russ Widoe. I'd never heard of the gentleman before. Looking for an on-camera host for a TV series that he was producing about Wisconsin geography. It was for kids, he said. He wanted a TV teacher, whatever that was. Preferably an educator who was also an actor, or it could have been an actor who was also an educator. At that point, I'd been a teacher for 1 year, and the one play I'd been in 5th grade was with Green Bay Community Theater, but apparently I met his criteria. He was desperate. After a terrible audition in front of that Wisconsin map, somebody, it was the first time I'd ever been in a TV studio, somebody off in the dark said, "Good job," and I went home. In years to come, I would hear Russ often say, "There's no such thing as an amateur actor," and I would think he meant me that day. A day or two after that great audition, he called me and asked me to come in for an interview. I said, "Sure." And we set a time. I hung up the phone. I thought, I've got to get my transcripts together. I've got to get some recommendations together. I have to, I've got to get prepared for this. But of course, there was no time. I went in. We sat down and talked. My formal interview to start my career lasted about 3 minutes. I don't remember much of anything about it. I do remember that he said, "Ryan, if things work out, I'll get you a job in real TV." And he also said, they've got a good retirement. Sure, and I had my career, which I haven't been able to shake ever since. He just made it too much fun. Now, I've always called him Mr. Widoe. I knew nothing about him before that first day we met. I heard people call him Russ. Some people just called him Widoe, and some people were calling him the Colonel. I had no idea why they were calling him the Colonel. But after my brief interview, I was trying to think of a way to end it, and I said, "Well, what would you like me to call you?" He said, "Mr. Widoe." And that was it. In recent years, the Christmas cards from California were signed Russ and Mimi, so I guess that was my permission to call him Russ finally, but never was quite able to bring myself to do it. Mr. Widoe was a curmudgeon and a rascal. He had enormous energy and imagination. I remember pep talks at 7 o'clock in the morning over breakfast at Little Greasy Spoons on Broadway Street. He was trying to teach me to develop a thick skin because he knew I'd need it in this business. Mr. Widoe worked fast. He worked the phones, he worked the typewriter, he worked his audiences and the crowd. Behind his closed office door, I'd hear yelling, laughing, table pounding, some whispers. I was afraid the fur was flying. I didn't know what was going on. But when the dust settled and Russ came out and everyone came out, there'd be a new project, or that the funding would have started, or a problem was solved. So things moved forward. Russ introduced me to antique dealers, musicians, politicians, bureaucrats, the Department of Public Instruction, government funding, Oriental arts, and a lot of great stories of his days in music, radio, and TV, most of which, of course, I can't repeat. As Eileen and I were talking over old times the other day and some of the anecdotes, we found ourselves saying, "Oh, well, we better not repeat that one." Or, "Well, can't quote him there." But I guess you wouldn't mind if I told a couple of stories. If you may have heard some of these things. If Russ was of the opinion that somebody that he had dealt with recently was not quite as sharp or on top of his game as he should have been, he would come back and say, so-and-so couldn't pour pee out of a boot, but the instructions were written on the heel. Or if there was someone on screen or on stage that Russ thought maybe wasn't looking as good as he or she should, the comment was, his makeup was by Shower and Schumacher. Russ's stories, Mr. Widoe's stories, and his commentary are still a frame of reference for me. At some point in every project, even now, the thought occurs to me, what would Mr. Widoe say about this? Who are we talking to? What are we trying to say? Let's pee or get off the pot. Let's not have a Chinese fire drill here. Once in California, my wife Carol and I, and my son Joe, who was 4 at the time, stopped to see Russ and Mimi. We stayed overnight, had some fun. In the morning, Mr. Widoe entertained us with Prince Gregor, his puppet that he had put on his knee and entertained Joe with. At some point, Joe began running around the house with a plastic squirt gun or something, waving it and saying, "I'm a robber, I'm a robber." And Russ said, "Yes, Joe, you are a robber. You robbed our hearts." Mr. Widoe, you did too. We have a video from, Judy, this was 1991.
The person we're going to nominate, or not, to give an award to this afternoon is a man that I've known for many years, Russ Widoe. And I have one thing that will always stick in my mind about Russ Widoe, and that is that Russ Widoe sat in meeting after meeting that I was at and said, "But it's good for kids." He always put the needs of kids first. There were a lot of people that gave nomination support to Russ's award, including Paul Norton, the executive director of the Wisconsin Education Communications Board, who says that Mr. Widoe was an early pioneer in the use of television for instructional education purposes. His first contribution came as he focused his commercial program, Colonel Caboose, on children with an instructional component. Eileen Wittig said, "Russ Widoe was the first director of Newest. I was the second. He was my mentor, friend, and creative lifeline. And in his mind, there was never nothing we couldn't do for kids in northeastern Wisconsin." I'm proud that NEMA has selected Russ Widoe as the award winner of their 1991 Award of Excellence.
My wife calls this my man from Mars glasses. I don't see too well anymore, but I can see that there are a lot of people here, and I know you're going to a lot of trouble. And when Dave called me, if you could believe this or not, and my friends won't believe it, I was speechless. I'm not speechless now, but I won't take up a lot of your time. You people are the most important people in the educational community because nobody's going to be able to keep up with the burgeoning amount of material that's necessary to teach unless they use media. There's no other way to do it. And of course, there are a lot of things that you can't do in the classroom that need to be done that media can do. Eileen has done some of these programs. How many of you guys would like to go into a classroom and say, and today we're going to talk about AIDS. Or today we're going to talk about teenage pregnancy. You're going to do it, but how much easier it is to have something to back you up. And media can not only help there, but can help you in so many different ways. And you know that. I don't know why I'm sitting here yelling at you, and I know you know these things. But it's an awesome job. Awesome. I just, my hat has come off me. I don't have a hat, I have that. But it's absolutely awesome to think of the tremendous opportunity you have, of course. But the job to do what you have to do, and you're going to have to fight. I'm awfully sorry, but it's going to be a fight because where are you going to get the money? You're always going to say, where is the money? Even George says that in Washington, where is the money? So you're going to have to fight, and I mean fight hard to get enough to do business with and to get, as he said, to get something for the kids. What we did at Newest was a family affair. It was not me particularly. I loved it. It was the best part of my life, but it was the kind of a family affair. John David was the kind and wise dog. But I just like to say that the people, like the board members, and among those was Lyle Martins. Boy, did he help. Every minute he was helping there. And then, of course, my immediate family there, Gene Stauber was with me for the whole time, and Carol Wolf, and Jimmy Kissinger, who's now working very hard and doing a nice job in the western part of the state. Brian Schmidlin, who is now working on his own doing things, and of course, Mary Joel, her name is Beauchamp, now I can't remember what it was. And now I can see. And of course, Miriam Harrison, who's up here. Bless her sweetheart, anytime I need anything, I ask Miriam, she'd take care of it. She'd make it go. And I gotta say that the smartest thing I probably ever did in the whole time I was there was to quit. and to turn the reins over to Eileen Liddy, who has done marvelous things for Newest and for you and for the kids of this area. Now I want to have just a couple of things that I want to say. In your fight, the kids can't vote. You know, they don't vote. And the kids can't give money to the nighttime programming or any of that thing. You've got to stand up for them. And you've got to see that they get what they have to have. And they have to have quality programming. Quality. They're the best little critics in the world. They sit down to a boring program and they go to sleep immediately. They don't wait. You've got to have quality. You can't get quality for nothing. You've got to have the money to make quality programming. And there is a tendency on the part of everybody, perhaps you in your own place, and of course the bureaucrats, there's a great tendency to buy hardware. It looks so good, and you can pet it and kiss it and enjoy it, you know, and put it on the list of things that you've done in the world. But hardware is absolutely worthless unless you've got something to put on it. And it's not a local problem. It's nationwide. See, the Japanese, they don't have that problem. They spend money. And the English and the other people and the Germans. But America, we just never made it. We made one program. It's still good. Sesame Street. And after that, we forgot. See, so please, work hard. Fight to get good programming, because the kids won't watch bad programming. and stay with it. God bless you all, every one of you. Thanks again for this. It's been marvelous to come and meet all my friends.
For those of you who don't know, I'm Mark Paulson, and I had the joy of sharing another part of Russ's legacy. I get to live with one of his daughters. My introduction to Russ was back in the mid-70s. I was living with Judy at the time, and we came up to meet her parents up in the farm in Egg Harbor. And we drove up, and I came in the house, and after a long drive, I went into the bathroom. I feel this is appropriate. Russ was not above bathroom humor. And I went into the bathroom and I sat down. I looked over, and here was a full-size cutout of a person. And in this ridiculous bib overall and train hat. And that was my introduction to Colonel Caboose and Russ Widoe. Later that year, I really started to get to know Russ. I never knew him, as a lot of you people did, as an innovator in education, as a TV personality. I just knew him as Russ, Judy's dad. And that fall at Thanksgiving, he involved me in another one of his projects, as he had all the time, a project going, which was to roof the chicken coop. And I think I probably am not sharing a secret when I would say that he was frugal. You know, there's been discussion as to where Widoe came from. Was it Polish or whatever? I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I think it might be a little Jewish too, because they're very frugal. So that was my first construction project, I think, in my life. My dad was not a builder. Russ enlisted me in putting the shingles on this chicken coop. But only Russ would do it this way. He went to the lumber supply place and bought all the closeout shingles. Whatever color they happen to be, whatever size they happen to be, as long as they were cheap, Russ would do it. So we roofed this chicken coop. It still stands today, and every time I drive by and see his roof of many colors, I remember the enjoyment of spending some fall afternoons working with Russ and getting to know Russ at that time. I'm going to miss Russ. The thing I'm really going to miss about Russ is after he retired and moved to California, Judy and I would go out and visit my parents and we'd drive over and spend time with him. And we anticipated going out this year to see him too. I hadn't seen him in about 6 years since my mother died. But when he moved out to California, he called every week. He called Eileen every other month. But he called his family. He called Judy, and I'm sure Pat too, every week. Every Friday, he'd call. Judy would be at work, or we'd be at home, but the number of times that we were out living our lives and had things to do on Friday night, and came home, and there was the light blinking on the recorder. And I knew who it was on Friday night. I'd punch that recorder, and it would say, "Hi, it's Pappy. Just called to say I love you. Hope everything's well." And he'd hang up. And I learned, you know, he loved children, but he loved his family. And he called every week. I hope that I can have that kind of commitment to my family, that when I'm older and farther away, that I still can say, "Hi, it's Pappy. Just called to say I love you."
We don't get through this world without it. I have so many memories. Yes, the farm up in Egg Harbor. Remember the weekends we spent up there, nature hikes, just being up there. It's incredible. But I think what I miss the most, he was a great teacher for me. And He made it so much fun, going out and doing fair shows and meeting people, working with other professional people. He made it so much fun. You were never afraid to walk out on stage. You never knew what he was going to do. Swinging on a star, he made a collapsible easel. And it was supposed to fall down on the ground and the kids would laugh, and he was trying to hold it up, but somebody thought he needed help and jumped out from the audience, and he tried to hold the easel up while he's drawing, and Russ would be kicking it with his foot to try to get it to fall down. And Mrs. Dancing Bear, which happens to be my mother, she was part of the act when we went out and did fair shows too. She'd be out there dancing, and Russ would be doing the songs, and he made it so much fun for kids growing up. It was never work, never. It was always an adventure. You'd get in the car and you'd do things, or you'd stop along the way, you'd get to the wherever we were going, and it ended up to be a great time, a giving time. He taught us not to just take what we had. God gave us the gift of music. He took that gift and taught us how to use it wisely and how to sing correctly. And then from there, we learned and went with him to the hospitals, visiting children, nursing homes. We did all these things. We just gave of ourselves and learned to give. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts he has ever given me.
I have a memory of Russ Widoe. I met him as a young child, and he was like a second father to us. We were very close, the family was. And one day, we were driving along to go to a fair show, and I saw a turtle. He saw a turtle on the side of the road, and I wanted that turtle. And he stopped the car, and he got the turtle for me, and I brought it home. Of course, I set it free later on, but I mean, he did all these things for me, you know, and it was, we would picnic with him, we would hike with him, we spent a week in Door County with them before they got the farm, and we had a trailer house, and they stayed at a motel. All these things, he was like family. He was much more than just a voice coach and a TV personality. I mean, he was like family, his whole family was. And just so many fond memories of the work he did, and we loved doing educational TV. There'd be a day when everything would go wrong, you know, and we'd have to do take after take after take, but we did it. And that was what we were there for. And it just, and of course the memories of the TV with Colonel Caboose, lovely time, just tremendous time. So that's my memory. And we're going to sing a song.
We have too many, let's just sing.
Yeah.
I remember the day we were teaching educational TV and teaching kids how to write. Here we go. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. And where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved
to running the Memorium. I lightened it up a little bit. Anyway, I didn't realize, well, I knew we had a lot of friends, but admirers, but this is an amazing group here. Glad that my mom convinced me to come out and attend, and I said I wanted to come up and say a few things. Now, this isn't my thing. My sister's the theatrical one in the family.
Great.
I'm just the engineer. I got the other Widoe talents. But she's, so please bear with me. Anyway, I was told by my mom, just Patsy, wrap it up there. You mean to let that one out of the bag? Anyone didn't know. But anyway, I was told that when I was born, my grandfather announced my birth on the Colonel Caboose show, even before she was wheeled into a room. So that means, I guess, half of the Green Bay baby boomers. Actually, I have to correct that. I guess he had a 75 share in that. Can you imagine they're selling that time? 75 share? Yeah. Anyway, that means 75% of the kids in Green Bay knew exactly when I was born. So it's kind of like CNN on 40 years ago. It's breaking news. Anyway, she also told me that during one of the last conversations with him that he mentioned how proud he was of me and all that I've accomplished. I'm just as proud of him and his positive influence on an entire generation, as well as many of the generations to come. They'll benefit from his pioneering work. I think people that know him, and I'm learning more today than I did. I had no idea all the things that he had done. And people knew how he had influenced their life. And I think they all want to hear too. I just found out today, remembered today, that he started Bay Beach, which I enjoyed. I don't know how many millions of kids probably have been there. It's unbelievable. It's an easier question to answer is, what didn't he do? I was reflecting on my history with my grandpa, and I'd like to share a couple of the more vivid memories I've had. Now, close your eyes and imagine you're walking down the hall, grade school, 4 or 5 or 6, 7 years old, and come up with a bunch of kids talking about Colonel Caboose and the show we had. And I walk up and start pounding my chest and say, yeah, he's my grandpa. Yeah, he's mine. That's Colonel Caboose. Yeah, I can get on the show anytime I want. I can get you in there. Anyway, imagine how cool that would be for the kids. And that was my entire grammar school time was while he was doing the show. And so it was excellent. As we got older, we experienced, you can open your eyes. Yeah. Sleep in back there. Anyway, I'll be done shortly. Anyway. As we got older, we experienced his other talents. I guess growing up and watching him making things, building things, and I got the feeling that I could do just about anything I put my mind to. And as far as I can remember, he built several things right from scratch. Just to name a few, he had a huge pipe organ that he built into his house. I remember as a kid, it seemed like it was 300 feet tall. I don't know how long it took him to do that, but it was amazing. He built a harpsichord, which somebody mentioned, I think, and he remodeled an entire guest house, and we were kind of involved in that. Sandy and I did the sheetrock. Anyway, Many other things he did carvings and other art items that would just knock the socks off in our Abrams. And, I was thinking about how our personalities and our talents are derived. My sister and I are so blessed to have such a great genetic potluck stew of talent, compassion, and creativity and common sense. The sense of humor and the common sense and work ethic came from my parents, I think, and a lot of the creativity, desire, and ability to excel at every possible technical trade came from the Widoe pool, I think. I can't think how Sandy and I could have done any better with that kind of start. I don't know where I got my athletic ability. Grandma, did you see? Lucky or anything? My dad. Anyway. Oh, and thanks, Grandma, for the great head of hair. I know that didn't come from the Stein side. Although I can't grow a huge beard like he can, so I'm a little jealous of that. Balls. Anyway. And miles of electrical tape on a single 6-foot cord. I don't know anyone who could cut their circular saw cord so many times without getting electrocuted and burning down the house. My vivid memories. Out of politics, one of my favorite subjects. Our whole family agreed on, I believe. This is another reason why Russ was so endearing to all of us. Unlike some of us that get more conservative as we grow older, Russ maintained many of his passions for the traditional liberal ideologies. I guess my sister and I are charged with carrying a left-wing banner. In his absence. All I can say is watch out, Jesse Helms. If you're lucky enough to climb your way into heaven, you'll have a special roommate, my grandfather. Forever around you, through eternity, or at least until Rush Limbaugh or G. Gordon Liddy shows up. Anyway, politics, we all have fun with that. And my grandfather had a knack for bringing people together. He brought my mother and father together for the first time in 15 years. And I thank you for that. Anyway, he was Mr. Public Television, Mr. Educational Television. Russ Widoe from Caboose? Yeah, that's my grandfather. Okay. Anyway, I'd like to introduce my sister now. She's the artistic, creative manifestation of the great Stein Widoe loins. A woman who's devoted the first half of her life to creative expression and the second half to environmental protection with the Nature Conservancy. My favorite sister, my favorite sibling, my only, as far as we know.
I'm supposed to follow that. Russ Widoe was a great man for all that he was and all that he has done. But my brother and I are here because we're sharing a small personal slice of the life of this great man. Russ Widoe was a great grandfather. He was not a normal grandfather, though. When my brother and I sat curled up on his lap to hear him read the Christmas story, it was in front of a TV camera. When we were kids, as my brother said, our grandfather belonged to all children. He was grandpa's. It is my adulthood that Russ Widoe influenced, not my childhood. He didn't teach me how to ride a bike or play checkers. He taught me how to pitch an idea. He taught me how to argue. He taught me how to question. But most of all, he taught me how to recognize my talents and use them. My grandfather and I discovered each other sometime in my teenage years. He came to hear me sing in a high school musical and promptly went out, bought me a guitar, and told me I had to learn how to accompany myself. When I studied theater in college, he would check up on me to make sure voice teachers weren't ruining me. You can sing because you can act, he would yell. I didn't pursue acting. I'm in public relations, but that's my grandfather's influence too. I think it's significant that he retired and I graduated from college in the same year. That's when he and I started to grow closer. Throughout the 1980s, we were steady pen pals. We weren't trying to revive the lost art of letter writing. We were both just too cheap to pick up the phone. Grandpa said he loved to tell people, my granddaughter still has some of the first dollar she ever earned. We were a couple of famous skinflints, and that he enjoyed that immensely. Several people today have used the word mentor, and my grandfather was my mentor also. His influence on me was tremendous. So much of what I am is because of him. From him, I learned how to find a need and fill it. This lesson I've used throughout my life. My accomplishments will never begin to touch his in scope or in impact, but I have followed his examples many, many times. It is because of him that I've been able to have several entirely different careers, and I've been successful in each of them. It's because of him that I challenge myself. I'm in competition with myself, not others, to do my best at every challenge that I take on. I'm comforted knowing that he was proud of me, that he liked me, and he respected me. When Grandpa and I were together in my adult years, never often enough, of course, we truly enjoyed each other's company. He asked my opinion often. He asked me. Some of our most fun times on the phone, later when we loosened up our wallets, were discussing his musicals in progress. We brainstormed characterizations and fleshed out his plots. As my Aunt Judy wrote, to say Grandpa had an active retirement is a supreme understatement. The creative energy that was at his core simply could not be stopped. He was on the internet and had email before we did. He wrote songs as he was losing his hearing, and he painted and sculpted as he was losing his sight. He pitched his musicals around the country and got them produced, too. 2 years ago, our whole family gathered in California. It was during that trip that I had my last day with Grandpa, when he and I spent an entire day from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, talking about every subject under the sun. Since the clock wasn't ticking, as when we were on the phone, we took our time. I will treasure that day for the rest of my life. I was able to express to him what a tremendous influence he'd been. We played jumble, we looked at photographs, we listened to music, we ranted and raved about a multitude of societal ills. It was a terrific day. The last time I spoke to Grandpa was a few days before he died. I expected him to sound lively and ready to leave the hospital, but instead he sounded drugged and in pain. I asked him how he felt, and he said, "The way I feel right now, honey, I don't know if I'll make it to the year 2000. He was joking, and I laughed. As medicated as he was, he still remembered to ask if I had received a broken but expensive camera that he had just sent me. I said I did, and I would get an estimate on fixing it, and then we would decide if it was worthwhile. We were tightwads until the end. Our last words were that we loved each other. A man's legacy is in his children, in his work, in his mark on the world, and Russ Widoe has all of these, an enormous legacy. But there's a little bit more too. Someone else who's still here with some of his good and most of his irritating qualities. And I'm damn proud of it. I'm Russ Widoe's granddaughter.
Father, we are gathered here to thank you for that precious gift that walked among us for such a short time. To remember what he meant to us, what he taught us, how he helped us, but most of all, how he loved us. Lord, you sent him here to be a part of our lives, to show us more of who you are. Help us to reflect that. Help us to be more like Russ. More loving, more serving, more giving, more encouraging. Help us to be like Russ Widoe was. Father, we thank you that we can gather together and to share and to love one another. Father, we thank you for this time. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, University of Wisconsin, for being back. Let's enjoy the rest of our time together.
This morning, so that was really
Monday.
gives you better. I'm going, I understand this. Yeah, hi. He was quite a guy. To say in another legacy, we keep repeating ourselves. We want to most of the time it's good. Yeah, most of the time it's good. I hope it is.
But this would have been the kind of
He would have loved it. Oh yeah, he would have loved it. Yeah, he really would have. He would have gotten
Oh, we're just going right back. We got some things we have to drop off in here. So.
Even from grade school, before we started working with Russ, you were a part of my life. And I remember going to class, music class, at Fort Howard, Lincoln School. You're special to me. Okay, sounds good. Oh, my mom lives in the same place too. My last name is Mackenzie. No. I have a son using. She she's just going all over the place. So.
And if she doesn't teach her all the other facets of music education,
oh, sure.
that she can get in.
She also wanted to be a school counselor. Something psychiatry is all over there.
Yeah. Is it really?
Sit down. I couldn't hear the other end. So good to see you.
If I'd have known you were here, I'd have made you get up and say so.
I said I'd never forget what you and Russ went to. I was on the phone once they had a I showed up.
The second one, all right. I didn't know.
I didn't know how to order it.
All dressed up with a big hat, big green robe on the
But I'm just getting what I'm getting now. Yeah, I realize.
Those are 200. There's like him selling. You sure
They were frightened by his existence, that's what it was all. Really?
Well, because they knew he knew his stuff.
And he wasn't intimidated. Speak his mind. The department could for anybody.
Right.
You know,
That's
his
right.
personality just came up, and energy, he was very unique.
And the other thing is that's what he passed on to Brian, he passed on to myself, that you believe in yourself, you can do almost anything. And then we still do that, Joe and I. I mean, we're just little tiny, and we believe we can do anything.
You know, we sell our tapes to all over the country, and people call us up and they think we have this huge office. They're just amazed. 3 people.
And if she